am I sending? You said any.
G. Welcome, 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 everybody. We are back. Your friends at the Legacy Wealth Capital Group.
We don't play that because it's like we don't care what's going on. We make it happen.
The office pretty much depended on us. If we didn't work, the office didn't work, basically. It couldn't function without us.
I think about like, what could we have done different?
And you could follow that model with your product.
Your service will not sell because people are going to feel that conversation. Welcome, everybody. We apologize that we run a little bit behind tonight. Sometimes you just got tech issues and you're looking for stuff and you're trying to figure things out and kind of get sorted. But we are here. We are ready to rock and roll, and we got something great in store for you tonight. First off, Kyle, Sean, how you guys feeling?
Great. Great.
Doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. I would say, we spend a lot of time talking to business owners, talking to investors, working to, I would say, educate more than anything, because what I'm learning is even when people want or think they want to raise capital, they have no idea how to do it. They have no clue where to start. I was on a call today, a small mastermind group, and we were talking about, raising capital in different forms. And I'm like, well, what financial instrument are you using? You just raising $3 million. How? What is the security that the investor is tying their investment to? And so I think there's still just a lot of conversation left to be had about this capital raising thing and how it actually works. I also want to tap you guys in on something, get your opinion, because you come from this world, you've been in it a long time, you know how it works in and out. And before we jump into the topic, I saw a post that was talking about Wall Street being upset or something about influencers who work or are upcoming in banking. So what it is I guess this generation of youth that are starting to work in investment banking, they're starting to work on Wall Street. Social media is a large part of their lives. So they're taking information from the bank side of the world, Wall Street side, investment side, and they're pushing it on social media in limited context and becoming influencers around it. And some of the Wall Street, I guess, titans and old school, they don't like it. So what do you guys think about that? Is can the old guard keep the new guard from pushing information out, or will it always be watered down? What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be difficult. With the age of social media, you have people pretty much promoting everything out there. So it's going to be difficult. But what you find out with probably 80, 90% of the cases is they haven't taken the company public. They'll talk about it. They'll give you advice and critique others or give you, recommendations, but they haven't done it themselves. So it's almost like, where are they getting the information from?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because a lot of things that there's a lot you can't go out there and find a book about it, how to take your company public. We have an academy that teaches people, how to take your company public, how to raise capital. But I think you got to be very careful because there's a lot more to it than just taking your company public. There's a capital raising aspect to it as well. There's making sure you have enough shares out there, that you can raise capital with. You can't there's valuations. You can't go out there and try to raise, capital on anything because the public, it doesn't have that sizzle that, us, being business owners, we look for. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. You got to be careful who you listen to.
What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, that's a funny question, but it's a double-edged sword. Um, the young guns I'm happy. I encourage them. I want to see them. Social media has changed the game. Matter of fact, once for social media, we might not be out here as we are right now. So I'm happy for that. But like Sean said, where you get the information from? You know, are you YouTube University educated, or do you really know what you're doing? And like like Sean said, you could be listening to somebody telling you about something, but they really haven't done it. I mean, it's funny. You go to these classes right now. You could be in the Wharton School of Business. You could be in the Harvard School of Business or whatever. But guess what? You're being taught by somebody that's teaching you theory, not somebody to teach you literally what happened. I mean, you learn from us. And as you learn from us, you literally learn from us. And now you literally know how to do it. You're in the process of doing it now, you know. So that's what we're talking about. So when you talk, we don't cringe because you've done it. You're going through it. You know what it takes, the intricacies, just the day in and day out of what it takes to become a publicly traded company.
Yeah, and one of the things that one person did comment and mention was you can't look at $1 billion company like BlackRock and take everything that they do and put it in a 30-second clip.
Ain't gonna happen.
You just don't have the context behind all of the pieces to that puzzle. And another thing people won't do is study or learn or seek or apply information. Because I heard just some stuff about loans today, and I'm like, that ain't how that works. It doesn't work that way. We got to get away from half information, partial information, and trying to get to the money or get to wherever we're trying to get as fast as possible. I think that's the kicker. Everybody wants to skip the first 30 steps and be on home plate. It doesn't work that way. And there are ways to build it. It's not always easy, but it is simple if you just follow the steps. You don't have to skip a step, you need to follow them. And I see also, again, today, an event happened. I'll never get an invitation to these events now. I'm going to leave it alone. But they were talking about lending and loans again. But then when you look at the data and the statistics, most of these companies that push lending and loans don't do a whole lot of lending and loans because nobody qualifies. So it's this circular engagement of come to my incubator accelerator, go to this bank denies you. Now you go to the next incubator accelerator, go to this bank denies you. And it's just a circular event of a business. Like when I'm talking to these business owners, it's not that they're not trying, it's just they're not getting all of the pieces. When you have to go through this incubator, this county program, the Goldman Sachs, the Chase 10,000 small business, I feel, and this is a personal opinion, nothing against any other programs, but when I talk to a founder that's been through 5 or 6 programs and they still talk about they don't have enough money, can't hire anybody, can't get out day to day, those programs failed them. I used to believe that it was the owner. It's the owner's fault. They not applying. But when I sit in these programs and I'm mentoring these programs, I'm like, yeah, you got gaps. You're not prepping them for the real world and for capital. You're prepping them for the best case scenario with no way to implement what you're telling them. Yes, go hire 5 people to get you out of day to day. Yes, go add all this AI and bots and streaming and do all of the things. But with what money? I'm going to get off that horse. Let's get into the topic. We talk a lot about going public. Many people hear that. We did a training last night on the 6, 8 ways to go public. But what I want to share tonight is how you, Kyle, and Sean took your company public years ago. Years ago.
Make me sound
I
old,
want
man.
no. I'm saying years ago in the sense of how when Elon Musk or any of them do it is brand new. But for people who've already been doing it, you don't ever really get that credit of having done it.
Right.
And it's like it's brand new when you hear an influencer say it, but you've been saying it. So I'm saying years ago in a respect that you have done things that most companies never do. They never get to that stage. They don't even understand the process. and you did it without having to lean on the big boys in the game to help drag you along the way they act or pull you or support you. You guys were able to do it with this grit and determination. So let's kick it off and get it started. I don't care which one of you start, but I want to go back to the beginning of how you and Sean first met, what you guys were doing together, and why. I guess even the what was the decision for you guys to say, you know what, let's come together and take a company public?
Um, you know, I was in the military. So, my brothers was in the industry before I was. This was 90, 95, 94, something like that. And they would call me up and they would tell me how much money they're making in California, San Diego. I need to come out and they need my help and et cetera, right? So I go out to California on the visit because, obviously you don't, you take your brother's word like a grain of salt sometimes. So I go out to California. This was maybe fall of 95. I was in New Mexico, so I drove over. And San Diego was everything. First of all, the scenery, right? It was everything I dreamed of. Like, growing up watching Miami Vice, you always wanted to live in that atmosphere. So I go to San Diego and I'm like, wow, this is a beautiful city. So I go over and I met my brothers, blood brothers, and basically I had a chance to like to go in the boiler room and just seeing all of these guys on the phone and it was like exciting. Like I was instantly attracted to that. So I went back to New Mexico because I was coming up on my 4-year mark in the Air Force, the world's greatest fighting force, and and I told my commander, I'm like, he asked me, was I going to reenlist? I said, no, I want to get out. He basically let me know I represent the future of the Air Force. And I told him, well, that's okay, but I have a better opportunity in California. So my 4-year mark that following year in 96, the beginning of 96, I got out the military and I moved to San Diego. And that's when I learned pretty much everything you need to know about raising capital, operating in a boiler room, managing a boiler room, taking companies public, raising capital, structuring companies. I mean, you name it, I've learned it and I've done it. And I've worked for them or that for a couple of years. And then in 99, I went on and got licensed. And I had a chance to work for some of the largest broker dealers in the country and participate in some very extremely large IPOs like NVIDIA, etc. And I went maybe around 2003. I received and I knew Cal before. Cal used to be good friends with my older brother back in early, mid 90s. So um, Cal and I, basically, Cal had started this company and they were reselling products, right? So they asked me to come on board. He asked me to come on board. They needed help and stuff. So I came on board and I figured out a way that, because when you resell on a product, right, we were literally making pennies on the dollar,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
per hooking up. And I'm doing the math and I'm like, man, we got to sell like a gazillion, have a gazillion customers in order to make us decent living. So I figured out that we can do a wholesale agreement with the Lex, like Bell South, et cetera, and stuff like that. So I ended up moving out to Charlotte, North Carolina. We signed an agreement. Now, instead of using someone else's service, we had our own service and we created our own plans. And we raised capital, we expanded. We ended up going public roughly 2, 3 years later. And we signed agreements with, Sprint Communications, MoneyGram, I mean, just to name a few.
Bell South.
Bell South, and these are $multi-million agreements. We had our own phone service, cell phone service, and we had investors. We had our payroll was roughly around what between 30 to 50,000 a month. We had 10,000 something square foot office, in out here in Charlotte, South Park, one of the more expensive areas. You know, but we were just hustlers, man. Nobody told us we couldn't do it. And those people that I learned from as far as raising capital, we outgrew them because now we were doing things that they never even tried to do. They were so used to raising, helping other companies out, but it was a constant thing each company. Whereas we took it upon ourselves to raise capital with our own company, and I mean, we were able to take our company public.
Okay, very good. So you gave us a 30,000 foot view. Kyle, I want you to drill down into now when you were, when, and let's come to right when Sean decided to come work with you. You were raising capital already as well. What made you even move from that to start this telecommunications company?
I remember we were, I've been always of the opinion that when you're working for somebody else, they dictate your life. They dictate your getting off, your when you want to stop. Everything was in their hands. I didn't enjoy being in that situation. And I remember one day, if somebody's doing something wrong, remember I tell you, you're always going to end up on, my favorite television show. And I'm going to be frank with you guys. If one day we were in the office and the guy who we was working with, basically, the Treasury Department was in his house, and they was in his house because he wasn't doing stuff right. And the Treasury Department was there. I mean, the FBI was on the next floor, and I said, Lord, 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 if you help me get out of this house, the Lord, I won't come this way again. And being in that situation, I said, look, I don't ever want to be like that again because my whole life and everything that I was doing was dependent on somebody else. And I didn't want to be getting in trouble because of somebody else. So we figured out, hey, look, I'm smart enough to be able to do this on my own. All I got to do is get a business. And I saw that he had businesses. So I was like, okay, look, he's raising money for these companies. Well, that's what we'll do. Let's set up our own company and raise capital. We already know what to do. We already got the investors. Let's just do it ourselves.
That's good. I think a lot of people listening never really think about that. They think about their business from a sense of how can I serve my customers, my clients. They think about scale, but they don't really think about bringing investors into the fold. One, and I know you guys will talk about it later, they don't want to get their business taken over. And then two, nobody ever told them that they could. So you guys had sort of a leg up because you had all the information and you knew how the system worked and you watched. And so you were able to see other companies going public. Sean, you was able to work in some of the larger broker dealers and you were licensed. So you were serving from that side of seeing it. So you guys brought information into this company. Now, as you're building this company, what was the trigger or what was that thing that clicked to say, let's go public? Why go public?
Because nobody told us we couldn't, and it was, going public is probably one of the best things you can do if you have a company. And because not, let me paint this picture for you, right? So when I was in VC, right, back in the 90s, I mean, we was making so much money, right? I mean, and I'm a young guy, I'm probably 22, 23 years old, and boats, yachts, and that was ours, you know what I mean? But you go from that to having your own company and raising capital, and it switches around because now you're no longer able to take that type of money in. So I think we was getting paid what, $2,000 a month or something like that, a paycheck
Like every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, so, but you make your money off of the shares that you have and that you build up. So now it's almost like this. Okay, if I can put my our talents together, if we can join our talent, put our talents together, right, and create something special, and investors rate invest in our company, and we can get our Cal, I forgot how many shares we had, but let's say 25,000. If we can get it up to $10, conservatively $10, that's $250 million or 250 million that I'm worth. So we changed the game, and it's like, wow, these guys that was raising capital before, they never thought of that amount of wealth. And having shares in your company, raising capital, building the value of your company, and those shares that you have is one of the best ways to create generational wealth.
Yeah, and real quick, let me just add to that. When we were raising capital, and what we were doing, we called it the bullpen. So we were in the bullpen. You called it, the movie was Boiler Room, but we were in the bullpen. And so as we were in the bullpen, we learned how to do it that way. What Sean did is Sean actually evolved from the bullpen, and then he
Hmm.
went and he literally got his license. So when he got his licenses to actually work for, like, Morgan Stanley and things like that, he went to Wall Street and worked in the Twin Towers. For those of you who don't know, the building that went down. So when he got that, then now it's like, okay, we know how to do it this way. We know how to do it the backdoor way. But however, bringing Sean to the table made it legitimized because he knew, I was dealing with the shares and the transfer rates and stuff like that, but he knew exactly the rules and regulations and everything that went on and what we need to do. So now, us blending together, all we needed was just a company to market for.
Very good. Okay. So now you guys get the idea. Now you say we need the company. When you were thinking about going public, what avenues did you think about? I know the avenue that you end up taking. Was that the first thought that came in your guys' mind?
But there were actually three ways. Back then,
Okay.
you showed six here, but there was actually three ways. We called them a scratch pub code, which is basically just, you could scratch pub code, you could do a reverse merger, or you could just direct list it. So
Mm-hmm.
those were the three ways that we had back then. So we just kind of looked at it and said, okay, well, what's the easiest way? And so the easiest way was to do a reverse merger. So we just had to go out and find a shell. But that right there, it was in a job in itself because the first shell that we went to buy, I sat down with an attorney and I went to buy it and I paid $60,000 for it. But however, the attorney couldn't deliver all of the shares. So we were smart enough to know, hold up, wait a minute, he could just sold it to us and we walked away and we would have been messed up. But we were like, hold up, wait a minute, we need to identify where all the shares are. So it's called the no be list and the knock list. We got into that and found out that all the shares weren't there.
Mhm,
So we were paying $60,000 and we only got 60% of the company. We're
mhm,
like, nah, we ain't doing this. If you can't get the rest of the shares, give us our money back. We gave the attorney like a couple weeks and he couldn't get all the shares, so he had to pay us our money back. And then we went to another attorney. And I talk about it in my book, Going Public, how we took our company public. But what happened is we turned around and went to another attorney. And once we went to him, he was the SEC attorney in San Diego. And basically, what happened is we gave the money to him, said, okay, we want to go public. And then he would always tell us, oh, well, I'm still looking for something right now, but I'm going to need about 20,000 more because this is so then we turn around and say, "Oh, well, you know what? Call me on Friday. I'm still looking or whatever. I mean, hey, we're out there, but we're going to need about 30 more thousand." so so the number kept going up and up and up and up. And so then what happened is, but we were still getting investors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you understand what I'm saying. We were getting investors, but we waiting to buy this shell so we could roll our company into it. We had signed a deal with a $125 million company at Louisville, Kentucky, to roll this company into what we were doing. And what happened is, after a period of time, I got a little bit upset, so I called another SEC attorney, and that's what you want to do. Check, inspect what you expect. And so we checked another one, and then once we checked with this guy, and he was like, I said, yeah, hey, look, well, I got about 300 investors, and basically we're looking to go. But he said, what? You got 300 investors? I said, yeah. He said, there's no such thing as a company with 300 investors that's not public. He said, young man, whether you realize it or not, you're operating right now as a public traded company, whether you know it or not. So when I heard what happened with Jeff, with Mark Zuckerberg, and what happened with Facebook, he had over 500 investors. He had to go public
Hmm.
because he
Hmm.
was just like us at the time. This is years later, but he had over 500 investors. He was operating as a public traded company. He had to go public, and that's what happened to us. So I called up the guy and I said, "Look, man, look, you either take us public or give me back our money."
Okay. So take us to the capital raising side of this because you were already getting investors, you were already raising capital. I know that the pathway that you guys use to raise capital is way different than what's available today. We can do a whole lot more today than what you could do. So take us down that journey of how you were raising capital, what the financial instrument was, what the limitations were, and just how you were having those conversations.
Yeah, so back then we had to do a 504, right? 504, you can only raise up to a million,
Reg
right?
D.
Reg D Rule 504, you can only raise up to a million. Um, and you had to know the investors before they invested. So we had to get around that, and there's ways to get around that. But that's primarily how we raised the capital. Um, you know, we did the best we could do with that amount of money. Obviously things were a lot less expensive back then, but we did what we had to do. And that's what separated us from a lot of people out there. Because a lot of people would have took that money and bought some personal items and all this other crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And like Kyle said, he ended up on his favorite television show, American Greed. But we did exactly what and then like I was driving back there. What was it? Chrysler LHS or something. We call it the ghost, white ghost, big
The
long
white
Hmm.
goat
coat.
looking car, right? Because look, if I'm out here raising capital, the last thing an investor want to see me doing is driving in a Ferrari because red flags is going to pop up in his brain, right? So I drove the least attractive car. My house wasn't that lavish. I bought a house. I moved out here when Cal came out here to visit. I moved out here. I bought a home around the block from him, and my house was worth. I bought my house for, I want to say back then maybe 180,000. Back in what 2003 or five or something like that. Cal, I
In
forgot when you came in.
2005.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I wasn't living lavish at all, and again, just in case, because I understood the value that I had with the shares, not because I was making a certain amount of money or whatever. Because in this game, it's the shares is the real value. Now let me tell you the significance of having your company public. I want to get to that real quick. We had a meeting with probably a what Fortune 100 company. You think and basically they we were looking at getting approval for our cell phone service, right? And they were looking at us like, how did these guys get in the room, right? And I created a business plan specifically for them, right? And they were looking at this plan like, looking at the clock. They were uninterested. Googling, dribbling down and stuff, and you know. So I mentioned that we're publicly traded, and these guys said, "You're publicly traded?" I said, "Yeah." And then one guy yelled from across the table, "He's like, so what's your symbol?" Try to catch us, and we gave him our symbol. And the other guy was like, "Well, how did you do that?" And we explained to him how we went public, right? And now they went from leaning back in the chair to up front with their hands on the counter, very invested in what we had to say. That's the significance of going public. Because normally, if we would have went in there as a private company, they would have said, "Kick rocks, get out." Or, "Yeah, we'll call you now." They pat you on the back. "We'll call you, you know, and you would never hear from them again. But just the fact that we had a publicly traded entity when we walked up in there, was I'm betting the main reason why we got the contract. So I just wanted to mention that because people still don't understand the significance. This isn't a big league that's out there. Tyrus came up with a number the other day. It was what, 32 million businesses out there,
Yeah, roughly.
and it's only 4,400 publicly traded companies. 4,400. So we were a part of that group.
Yeah, and
Very good.
this is actually how we did it. So basically, this is what's called a PPM. So it's a private placement memorandum. So what we did is, like Sean said, we had to have relationships, and basically, this is a Reg D 504, confidential information. But this is the way we had to do it. This is what's why Sean and I we just are mind boggled and baffled. It's so much easier today. Look how thick this is. All right, this is pretty heavy. This probably weighs about a half a pound. All right, we had to mail these out to every individual. So think about it. We mail these out. So we FedEx, we DHL, we UPS'd it out overnight. We didn't do it like 2 days. We overnight, and then we overnight when they put the check, they had to write us a check, and they shipped it back to us. This is how we did it.
Yeah.
And again, we had so many of these printed up that we had big boxes from Staples, and we would be mailing these out. Now think about it. We had over 300 investors, but how many do you think we had to mail out to get 300
To get
investors?
the 300. Oh wow. So
Yeah.
you spent some money on postage.
Our postage was
Now
what, about 4 or 5 grand a month, something like that.
now what's funny is Jay Morrison went on Social Proof podcast with David Shands, and one of the things he brought up was, do you know how much it costs to mail out statements? Now I don't know why today he was mailing out statements. I don't understand. I don't, you can go to a transfer agent and do all of that stuff digital. You can have digital certificates today. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I was surprised when he said that, he was mailing out these statements and paying for postage, and how much all of that costs. Well, it's a part of doing business. Kyle, I know you have some things in the presentation that you want to share. You want to walk us through that?
Yeah, not a problem. So basically, so what happens is, now again, the way we went public was through a reverse merger. So
There we go.
what we did is this. So we actually acquired this company. This is the company that we bought. It was called Centricom. And if you take a look at that, that is the master certificate. So you see right there, it says this certifies that JMI, which is Juice Marketing Inc., we acquired the master certificate. And then how many shares does it say? Record of holder?
25 million.
Right. So the company had 25 million. And you see their QSIP. Their QSIP number is right up there up top.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So basically, so that lets you know that's legit. So that's the company that we acquired. So we bought them. And then what we did is we rolled our company, Juice Marketing Inc., we rolled it into Centricom, which after it converted, when it came out, then you're going to see that we did a press release. So then what does it say? It says Centricom reorganized, JMI Telecom, completes reorganization, merger agreement. That's the reverse merger. And so you can see what happened. So we actually did a press release before we bought it, and then we did a press release after we bought it. And then that's the press release right there. So we completed the reorganization merger, and you can see right there it says August 7th, and that's basically what is that? 2007.
2007.
Right.
Real quick, Kyle, real quick too. Why did we do 2 press releases? Because we did a press release before and we did a press release after. Well, you do that because first of all, you want to get investors excited, but you want to stay in the investors' ear. You want to get them to believe and understand that if you're going to do something, or if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So now, if we're negotiating the deal in the future, 9 times out of 10, they're like, okay, these guys is working on something big.
And
That's
that's
very good.
how you're actually able to get what we call it sizzle. You get the sizzle going. So at the reorganization, then you'll see right here, Basically, that's the second certificate. You see, it's 2001. 2000 was the math certificate. I got 2001. Sean got 2002. And you can see down there at the bottom, Sean's signature and my signature. And then you see the seal. And for those of you guys that when you get your corporation, when you become a C corp, you notice that we always tell you, we teach you to go ahead and buy the corporate book. Okay. Some people will go when they get their C corporation, they'll just get the articles of incorporation and things like that to operate stock, but they don't get the booklet. The reason why you get the booklet because what's inside the booklet? The seal, and you get the stamp. So when you take the seal and you hit it, that area right there, you hit it, and it's going to make it raised and embossed. That lets you know that certificate is for real because it's got embossed. It's got the seal on it, and then also the shares are inside there. But if you notice, yeah, I don't know if you really can't see it, but down there, actually to the lower, it's really to the lower right, or excuse me, the lower left. You can't see it, but it's not showing. But it was also DTC eligible. It says for digital transfer certificate. So back in the day, that's when it was getting started, the DTC. So we actually were giving out paper certificates. So we were mailing those out to all of our investors as well. So as soon as they got their shares, they turned around, they got that tip that's JMI Telecom Corp.
Okay, before we go further in that, let's talk a little bit about the numbers.
Oh, do me a favor. Go back once again to that certificate. I want everybody to see how many shares did I have.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Okay. How many
You
shares?
got you got 20,009,060.
Okay.
20,009,060 shares. So now we want to talk about from what you were selling initially, you're raising capital. So those investors were getting shares. What were they buying their shares at per unit?
So on our PPM, if you take a look at it, we were saying right here, but it was 45 cents a share.
Okay.
They were buying at 45 cents a share. When we came out, once we came out, we became, if you see the certificate, it talks about it in that press release. It says we came out, our new stock symbol was JMIT. And now,
Mm-hmm.
basically, that was according to NASDAQ. We came out at $1.79. So you do
$1.79.
$1.79,
And you had how many shares?
20 million.
I just had to use my calculator.
There you go. Use your calculator. Hey, let's keep it easy. A dollar times 20 million. So I
Okay.
want you to understand that. A dollar times 20 million.
So that's $20 million.
Sean and I were instantly rich overnight. Same thing happened to Mark Zuckerberg. Once he became a publicly traded company, he was an instant billionaire. Same thing with Bob Johnson. When he sold BET, once he basically sold BET, Viacom bought him, he became an instant millionaire. Publicly
And
traded.
for your investors, since they had their shares in the first company and then you merged with this company, what happened to their shares?
That's a very good question. So basically, what we did for all of our investors that were with us and patiently waiting, and they went through the ride with us, for every one share that they owned of Juice Marketing Inc., we gave them 2.5 shares of JMI Telecom Corp.
Okay. Now I'm great at algebra and trigonometry and that and advanced math, but that basic math get me a little bit. So if I come in and I'm paying 45 cents a share, but then when I roll over into this new, I get 2.5 shares at $1.79 per share.
For every share they had, we gave them 2.5 shares.
So let's say if I bought 1,000 shares at 45 cents a share,
Right.
when I rolled over, I get 2.5 times the 1,000 that I had
Correct.
at $1.79 per share.
Correct.
So my 1,000 shares would be worth 4,475 at that point. If I just had it at 0.45, they'll be worth $450. So I made some money. I made some money with this reverse merger. And of course, those who bought more, 10,000 shares, 100,000 shares, they did a whole lot better.
But this is the kicker. This is what people don't understand. This is where the wealth is created. those people that bought in at 45 cents when we went public, they were the public market now that were public is starting to buy shares. Where do you think they're buying those shares from?
I think this is where we're gonna need a slowdown and a breakdown, because I bet most people listening don't hear that part because we're used to buying shares just off the stock market. We're not really thinking about where they're coming from when they IPO and what happens. We're three layers down. So let's dial it back and slow it down.
Okay, so let's do this real quick. Let's really kind of break down. Sean and I get these calls all the time. Hey, look, man, I'm doing Forex. I'm doing Forex, man. You want to get in? You want to do some Forex? And Sean, we're like, for what? Why would we do that? We create stock. Why would we buy somebody else's? So now let's address your question. We create what we just shared with you right now. We just created the stock. So why would we buy into somebody? Don't get me wrong. Apple's a great stock. Why would we buy it? We know how to do that. Why would we buy Microsoft stock? Why would we buy Nvidia? We know how to do that.
So, Sean, from your perspective, and I know you like to go in on this, tell us that whole process of structuring the company. And you don't have to go deep. We don't have to go deep into it, but structuring the company, setting out the shares, keep the math simple to the IPO and what it's worth.
Yeah. So, and that's a good question. I mean, first you got to figure out how many shares you're looking at. I mean, excuse me, how much money you're looking at raising, and the valuation of your company, right? Um, so let's say you're able to raise your first raise is going to be at, let's say at, I don't know, let's say 25 cents, right? So you have to, when you issue out your shares, right? I mean, we like to issue at like a billion or something like that, maybe 1, 2 billion, 2 billions. That'll be authorized, right? So that's not actually issued part of the raise, but that's just authorized. Basically means like if you further on down the road, if you need to go back and get some more shares, you go back until you're authorized and get shares from that for additional raises, secondary markets, etc. Right?
The treasury.
Uh,
The treasury.
so you got to figure out how much you're looking at raising, and then let's say you want to raise 10 million, right? So, well, if you're doing a CF, you can only do 5 million. So, do you want to do two CFs? Do you want to do a 506C where it's unlimited raise? Why did I name those two? Because those two are the only ones you can advertise on. And I love advertising because now you're able to advertise all across the United States instead of doing a 504 or 506B where it's 506B is 35 uh,
Yep. Unaccredited.
unaccredited investors and the rest accredited investors. So I would rather advertise and get accredited investors for 506C or non-accredited and accredited for crowdfunded. So let's say you do two 502 crowdfundeds, 5 and 5. Well, you got to figure out the shares you're going to issue. Now, do you want to lose control of your company? So you have to issue yourself and your executives shares in your company so that you don't lose control when you raise capital. Because you can easily raise capital, and now the investors have more equity, and they can vote you out, vote a different, whatever you're looking at doing, just be against everything. Somebody could go in an open market or go to these voters, these investors, and buy up all the shares. I've seen it happen. And next thing you know, they're not work. They're working for someone else. So, but that's a basic, simple way of kind of understanding everything. You don't want to lose control. You want to be able to raise enough capital to where, you want to issue enough shares to where you're able to raise capital and you're not running short. You want to keep shares in the treasury too, because hey, you might want to do an acquisition out there, and that may include the acquisition may include a stock purchase, right? Where you're buying companies with your shares of the company. So It just depends on what you're looking at doing.
Okay. So as I'm creating my company and my C corp, because we need a C corp to do this, make this work, and I'm doing my articles of organization or incorporation, so used to LLCs. The shares that I'm going to authorize, we'll call it 1 billion. Then the first thing I'm going to do is break down my, and we did this. We broke down what do each owner get, each founder. We broke down how many raises we think we might need or might want to do until we get to this public state. And from there, now we are raising capital, preparing to launch. And so we know how many shares that we're going to push out for how much capital we bring in. So everybody that invests in the company today, tomorrow, a month, 6 months, a year, when we go public, all of those people who have those shares will have an opportunity to sell on the market. And for those who are buying at the IPO, they're buying the initial person's shares. And we talked about this with NVIDIA. NVIDIA, when they went public, blew up. Some of the earliest investors got in at 9 cents a share. So if we just say numbers, because I don't remember, if NVIDIA went public at $100 a share, and these people bought it at 9 cents, they made a lot of money. That's your overnight millionaire. That's your founders who own millions of shares. I seen one founder had like 100 million shares of one of these companies. That is the true, even though it's not overnight, that's the true overnight billionaire, multimillionaire. Because once that company goes public, that value is set. However many shares they own times what those per share cost is, that's their net worth. Do I got that right?
Yeah. The real, like Cal said, the real people or the real people who make money in this market are the early investors. I can if you compare investing in a Microsoft right now with a someone who invests early in a company, there's no comparison.
Right.
There's no comparison.
Yeah, because you can't even swing the number that high. It's gonna go from 250 a share to 255 to 259 to 260, and that's a $10 swing. And if you can only buy 5 shares because they $200 a share, you only swinging $50, a
And
hundred bucks.
it drops $6 tomorrow. So you're in there watching it just go back and forth like ping pong. That's not the real money. But people that have like those corporations that have the fund managers, those guys can take a $2 or $4 swing or whatever. That's
Right.
where they wanted to go down so they could turn on and buy more. But an ordinary regular individual like Edward Jones, they're not. You're not going to. You're just going to put it to a retirement account and hopefully it'll grow at 6%.
I mean, you look at like some of our investors, right, in the first company that they came in at 45 cents, and let's say they had 50,000 shares, right? Times that by 2.5,
Mm-hmm.
right? Times that by we reached up to $5. That's $625,000. We had guys in the company that invested millions and millions of dollars. You
Yeah.
know, so I mean, once put money, in the 50,000, the 50,000, right, was actually 20,000. You know what I mean? That was 20,000. But when they got that 2.5, right, 2.5 increase, it came up to 50,000. I'm pretty. I hope my math is right, but you know,
Yeah.
but that's incredible, right there. You can't. There's no comparison with the Microsoft unless you get a .com early on or whatever. There's no comparison.
Right. The companies now that are planning to go public. Everybody wants to be on SpaceX.
Right.
It's not the people that's buying right now or preparing to buy for SpaceX. It's the people that Elon Musk had in the very beginning. It's those early investors that came in at the very, very beginning. Those are the people going to make real money when it's IPOs.
But if you don't have $500,000, bring $2-3 million, you're not even going to get an invitation to the table.
That's the other key. I heard it was, oh geez, on Earn Your Leisure. I don't know if it was Two Chains or one of these other rappers that said he got an opportunity to invest, and people were saying, "Well, how did he get an opportunity, and how do we get it?" You won't get it because first you got to be an accredited investor to get invited to that table. Then, to Kyle's point, the check size gets bigger. I was talking to a guy that trying to raise $75 million on a drone product. I'm like, okay, what's the check size you want? They're asking for 750,000, $1 million per check. What everyday person walking around with $1 million? And so those opportunities for those huge IPOs, unless you know them from the beginning and you get in, you won't be able to sit at that table. Just like JP Morgan, Charles Schwab, any of the investment bankers or private banks, City Private Bank, all Capital One, you won't get in there. The wealth managers, they're gonna want you to have liquid $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, depending on what tier. Then they'll bring opportunities to you that they get, and most of those opportunities are because those companies are getting ready to IPO, and they are the bankers for that. So they're doing the road show, so they're bringing it in, and they purchase a certain block of shares to sell to their people before it IPOs. So there's a lot to this. But Kyle, I want you to talk a little bit more about just the talk a little bit more about can't now find the right screen. There we go. We passed this, but let's go into the press releases and what that means. I know you guys did one before, but talk about these press releases.
Right. But what those were basically, magazines that wrote articles about Sean and I, and what we were doing. So, being in the public eye and being able to let them know JMI Telecom, minority owned business, minority owned utility. We were one of the only minority owned public utilities in the country at the time, minority diversity supplier certified, and also too being a CLEC. CLEC stands for Competitive Local Exchange Carrier. So we were actually a phone company, not a reseller. We went from reselling to becoming our own phone company. We did a deal with Bell South. Shortly after that, about 3 or 4 months later, Bell South bought AT&T. AT&T didn't buy Bell South. Bell South bought AT&T. And then what happened is because AT&T was the bigger name, the global name, they took on AT&T's name. But Bell South was actually bigger than AT&T. So this is staying in the press's eye, and then we send these out to the investors to see what's going on. They see what you're doing with their money.
Mm-hmm. That's good. More press releases. So you
Right.
have articles, newspapers. These are written.
And there's a certain format that they have to be written. And if you look at those closely, you can see where it says contracts, via contracts.
Yep.
What the contract is basically it's a ticker tape. So it's that back in the day with tick tick tick, but now so you put that out, and that goes out to Yahoo Financial, Squawk Box, Bloomberg, all of the basically the financial institutions it gets out to, and that lets basically investors know. So very, very important. And anytime you get something with your business, you want to be able to basically, you want to do a press release. We were talking to one of our buddies the other day, and he just bought a new vehicle for his business. We're like, hey, look, you know what? That's a press release. You need to let people know about that. Do me a favor, go back to that one picture because there's a picture showing there with a gentleman, and I wanted to explain that to everybody too. Uh, yes, that's Sean and I with Les Brown. We spoke at an event and he was there. But that gentleman right there, Sean shaking his hand, Sean actually went to Hong Kong, and we went out to Hong Kong. That was a company that basically we bought. And Sean, do me a favor, share with him how you bought that company And I know everybody heard that Elon Musk bought Twitter, and he bought Twitter, and he did it with stock. But share this with you, what you did, Sean, back in 2007.
Yeah, so we were looking for companies to acquire because I mean, if you're in this industry, you understand that if you want to get to a $100 million company, it's difficult getting building 100 million per customer. The best way to get to 100 million is to acquire your way to it, right? So that was one of our philosophies. So one of our feelers out there told us that there was a company in Hong Kong looking at they wanted to go public and they wanted to talk or whatever. So I got on the phone with them, negotiated a deal, and I went over to Hong Kong, spoke to them personally, and let them know, look, we're a publicly traded company. I don't was we public or not public at the time? Do you remember?
Public.
We were public, so we're a publicly traded company, and basically, our stock is looking at, you know, by us signing deals with this Fortune 100 company, our stock is looking to explode. So basically, I ended up negotiating a deal to where this company was doing anywhere between 12 to $15 million a year, and they had contracts with Fortune 100 companies as well. Um, so I negotiated a deal. It was like 5.5 million shares and like $50,000. And now that 15 million or whatever they were doing was now reported on our books. When they did audited financials, we went from where we were at to a $15 million increase, and our stock, it started to go up because we were doing positive things. So, but yeah, we did that back in 2007, and everybody called Elon Musk a genius doing it, what, 2 years ago.
Yeah. So that was funny.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, as we wind this thing down, my key takeaways and what I really want the audience to take away is becoming a publicly traded company is one of the best ways for you to earn and create generational wealth. It is, I would say, elusive because, again, out of millions and millions of businesses in the country, you only got 4,400 that are publicly traded. I would say that it is not easy to run a publicly traded company. You're public. That means everything out there is out there. And if you stay above ground, you don't need to hide anyway. So I don't shouldn't be a big deal. But it is running a business. It is you have your business and then you have being publicly traded, which I'm learning is a whole different ball game going through this Reg CF race. But it is a way for you to go to the next level and make a lot of money doing it. And today, it is there are more pathways to going public than there were when Sean and Kyle went public. So there are stepping stones to going public. There are different markets to go public in, whether it's the OTC, NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, another smaller exchange, direct listing, Reg A Plus. There's ways to go public. And if you think about and envision yourself ringing the bell one day on New York Stock Exchange, there's a pathway for you to go there. There's a pathway for you to raise capital, take investors with you, build a story, and do it. There are many pieces along the way, but I'm learning that going public is a milestone. It's a life changing event, not only for you, but for those that are in your lineage. It's also a way that you can make sure that you're really doing what you say you're doing. Because if you're not, the markets are going to punish you. And we see that every day with businesses not doing what they're supposed to do and they're stock tanking and then they end up going out of business or getting delisted or whatever. But when we think about raising capital, building a business, think about the ways to do it versus the one way that we've all been told. Bootstrap your way as far as you can go. Then when you get stuck, most businesses never hit $1 million. But let's just say you hit 1 million. to 3 million. Then they say you're in the plateau. You're big enough that you're making a couple of dollars, but you're not big enough to scale because you can't hire the team. Now you can go to the bank and get money. Well, the bank doesn't always give you money. Then what? So I see this as a pathway that you can build a really, really great company, take it public, keep going, and have people invest in you versus always investing in somebody else. Here's what they teach you, and I'm going to get off of it, let you guys close it out. I heard somebody say, why are you always using the products of such and such, Starbucks, Walmart, Target? You use all their products, you should own their stock so you can have ownership in their company. Well, to be honest, most people buy such little shares or such few shares, there's no real ownership. You don't have any sway or control. Why aren't we hearing the message of take your own company public, have people invest in you, and control your destiny? We're so caught up in investing in others. And yes, there's stepping stones, and I get it. We are here to just bring the next stepping stone, the information for the next level. You bootstrap the company. Congratulations. You may have got a business credit card or a business loan. Congratulations. You hit $1 million in revenue. Congratulations. You invested in other people's companies. Congratulations. Now, how about thinking about creating a company or transforming your company into something that's not only investable, but that has the potential to go public so people can invest and trade your stock instead of always going to somebody else. So I'll leave it at that. Kyle, Sean, what's your last words for the people?
You know, I'll start and Cal could close it out. My question to everybody on this live: how much capital do you need in order to get your company to $1 billion? Valued at $1 billion. How much capital do you need? Because you can raise capital right now and not have to pay it back. I repeat, you can raise millions and millions and millions of dollars right now and not have to pay it back. I mean, that's like impossible, right? You can raise capital. You know why you don't pay it back? Is because the investors get their money when your company goes public. So if your company excels in the IPO, that's when the investors are going to make their money. But you can literally raise unlimited funds right now. There's companies raising billions and billions of dollars, capturing market share, creating unicorns and etc., and they don't have to pay a dime of it back. They're literally raising their money, raising capital to be $1 billion company, and not one penny is paid back. If we can do it, anybody out there can do it. If Elon Musk can do it, everybody out there can do it. That's all he's doing. He's raising large amounts of capital and taking companies public. This would be what, his second or third company he took public with SpaceX?
And he did a merger. He brought his company up under there. XAI, he brought up under there because he's burning cash.
You can acquire your way to $1 billion, but you can raise capital to buy all of these companies, put the proper management in place, right? The specialist that's going to scale your business, and not have to worry about paying it. Now, if you up here doing, messed up things with the funds, then that's on you. But if you do everything you're supposed to do, then the investors will make their money. If your company, makes money during an IPO stage, and that the markets doesn't pertain to you at all. It's what the investors who's buying the company thinks. That's who was buying the investor shares. That's how the investors are getting their money back. That's incredible to me. Incredible. You mean to tell me I can raise billions of dollars and not have to pay it back? What kind of bank loan is that? What bank loan can beat that?
I saw a company, Sean.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what it was called, but they raised $1 billion at a $3 billion valuation with no real business underneath
No real business.
it.
I
Recent. This was recent. I saw it
Yeah.
like 2 days ago.
They'll build their business with that $1 billion they raise. That's incredible to me. I mean, what are we waiting for, people?
Go ahead, Kyle.
You know what? Like I said, I mean that Sean actually kind of hit the nail on the head and dropped the hammer. He actually dropped the mic. I ain't got nothing to say, but I'll try to add my 2 cents. Two things. First of all, we talked about Elon Musk, and I want to ask everybody on here today. Thank you guys for being here, by the way. But I just want to ask everybody, whether you look at this, you look at this, whatever, whenever you look at this, the richest man in the world is raising capital. What is that telling you? He's about to be the first trillionaire in history. The richest man in the world, Elon Musk, is raising capital. If you listen to this and you're a business owner, I don't care how well you're doing, the richest man in the world is raising capital. I don't care how well you're doing. If he's raising capital, why aren't you raising capital? Think about it. All the great companies that we're out here dealing with, Ford, McDonald's. I mean, you can go on and on. Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, whoever, Facebook. They're all publicly traded companies. It's the American way. Elon Musk right now, basically, I mean, well, let's get off of Elon Musk. Let's say you go out, you guys are business owners, and you don't want to raise capital, but you need money. So you go to the bank. When is that first payment due? When is that first payment due when you get that money from the bank? 30
30
to
days.
45 days, right? But yet, if you raise capital, Elon Musk, the rich man in the world, is raising capital and he doesn't have to pay that money back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know what Tyler's talking about, if you don't know what Sean is saying, you need to be in our Capital Raising Academy class because it explains everything to you about how Elon Musk is able to do that and everybody else. How is he raising money and he doesn't have to pay it back? But yet you go borrow money and you got to pay it back within 30 days. I'm done.
Okay. That's it. That's all. Because I was almost
I got
about
one
to.
more thing. I got one more thing.
Oh,
One more thing. I saw this today. I knew I was going to tell you all about it. I forgot. But I was looking at something, and don't get me wrong. I love my rappers. I love my entrepreneurs. I love them getting out there, getting their paper, doing it as long as they're doing it good in the right way. But I saw Rick Ross today, and Rick Ross was saying to this guy, this guy runs around and comes up to people, hey, how'd you make your money? What are you doing? How'd you do
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Hard Knocks podcast.
Okay, right. So he ran up on Rick Ross, and Rick Ross was like, hey, how you doing? He said, man, I'm out here, I'm kicking it. And he said to him, man, when'd you make your first million? Rick Ross said, oh, I made it when I was 28. How old are you now? 50. He said, oh, you've been a millionaire for a long time, right? He said, yeah. Then he said, well, basically, you see yourself becoming a billionaire? He said, yeah, in about 2.5 years, 2.5, 3 years, whatever. And then he said, well, how'd you get so rich? And Rick Ross said, I got 30 partnerships. I got over 30 partnerships. Now, I'm not knocking it, brother. He getting this thing. Do your thing, Rick Ross, man. I'm proud of you, brother. Out hitting it. But partnerships, we got Shaq. We got LeBron James. We got Michael Jordan. We got Tiger Woods. We got Magic Johnson. Billionaires. Billionaires. They don't have a public traded company. They've got partnerships with public traded companies. I'm done.
Yeah, don't get Sean warmed up on that one. I saw him take a breath. He want to go in. We're gonna pause him though. We're gonna pause him because I was about to go in on that whole acquire your way to a billion because that's a whole nother topic too. People too busy out here trying to grind their way to $1 million. Just go buy you a business and
That's it.
you could be an instant millionaire overnight.
Yep,
I was
that's
just
it.
gonna get off of that.
That is
We'll
it.
get that to the people a
There's
whole
always a
nother week.
price.
Right. We'll get that to the people on a whole nother week. Thank you guys for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. Again, we want to start out with just giving information so you can know that there's another way. For me, it's optionality. Most people tell you you got to do this way. There's a lot of different ways to get to the destination that you want to get to. Just don't follow the same path because you can look at it, test it for yourself. I tell my kids this: when anybody tell you something, just ask them why. Why should I do it that way? Why shouldn't I do it that way? Why should I go to that bank? Why should I talk to that lender? Why are you recommending this to me? And let them qualify it. And then you make the determination. But you gotta open your eyes. You gotta look at the people around you. You gotta look at, okay, if they say 1 out of 3 businesses don't make it past 10 years, which one am I? Or actually 2 out of 3. My number's wrong. Two of them gone. One makes it. Which one am I? And why is it that way? So we're bringing information because we want to increase the percentages of small businesses that survive, make $1 million plus, and go public. Visit that link, webinar.capitalraisingacademy.com. You'll hear more about how Sean and Kyle took their company public, more about the financial instruments, and then you will see an opportunity to join us in the Capital Raising Academy so you can continue that journey as well. So we appreciate you guys. We will see you all next week.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you. Have a great one.
All right.